I was always the neglected sibling in a family that reveled in my brother's achievements. My brother was the star, and I was the shadow that lingered in his light, invisible and dim. I remember the endless echoes of my parents' proud words, their voices ringing like a fanfare around him. "Did you see his report card?" they would proclaim with beaming smiles plastered across their faces. "All A's again, he's going to Harvard. We're so proud of him." I would watch from the sidelines, a spectator in my own life, trying to muster something, anything, that could grab their attention. Sometimes I would practice my own achievements in the mirror, practicing the lilt in my voice, hoping that during dinner they might ask me what I had done that week. Each time I raised my hand from the back of the room, hoping for that nod of acknowledgement, I was met with indifference. "Oh, you did well too." "Good job," my dad would say, still looking ahead, lost in the recounting of my brother's latest triumphs. I understand now that I was just a backdrop to their golden child, someone to frame his brilliance, a canvas of dullness to accentuate his vibrancy. The worst day came unexpectedly, as days often do when they hold the power to shatter you. I stumbled upon a conversation between my parents one evening, their voices low and conspiratorial in the kitchen. The rich aroma of garlic and rosemary wafted through the air, but the meal at hand could do nothing to satisfy the hunger gnawing within. "He has so much potential," my mother sighed, her voice colored with reverence. $50,000 saved for his college fund. He can go anywhere. We owe him this." My heart plummeted to my stomach, heavy and cold. $50,000. What had I ever been worth compared to that figure? I had been piecing together my own future with scraps of encouragement and second-hand resources. An old laptop from a friend, half-hearted words promising I could be anything I wanted to be if only I worked hard enough. But hard work had never been good enough for them. Community college, they suggested, as if that was the end of the road for my ambitions, as if my dreams could only ever reside in modest places. "Did you hear the news?" My brother called from the hallway, breaking the trance of my disbelief. I turned to see him standing there, his blue eyes alight with excitement, practically brimming over with pride as he held a pamphlet. "I just got accepted into the summer program at MIT," he announced, grinning from ear to ear and practically glowing as if a spotlight had been placed directly upon him. My heart sank further as I watched my parents rush to hug him, wrapping him in accolades that filled the air with a sense of triumph, a celebration that washed over me like cold water. "That is incredible, honey. You are so brilliant, just like your father at that age." My father clapped a hand on my brother's shoulder, practically lifting him off the ground with admiration. "Yeah, that's great," I managed to croak out, trying to sound enthusiastic, but all that spilled out was bitterness. My voice barely penetrated the air charged with my brother's achievement. I smiled weakly as I watched them. They weren't even looking at me. I felt like a ghost passing through the walls of my own home. "How do you feel about it?" I managed to ask, hoping for some scrap of connection, something beyond the weight of their praises. "Oh, I'm stoked," he exclaimed, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "It's going to be a great opportunity. I can't wait to build my robotics project." The conversation flowed around me, and I faded into the background, like a book collecting dust on the shelf. "You should be proud of him, Harper," my mother called back over her shoulder as she continued to berate my brother with reminders of his upcoming academic responsibilities. "He's going to do great things. Isn't that right?" My stomach twisted as the words settled in. I wanted to scream, to shake them awake and let them see me, but the sound stuck in my throat. My dreams, my hopes, my identity, none of it mattered in a family too busy building a monument to my brother's glory. That night, I slipped into my room, the melancholy air thickening around me. I closed the door, allowing the familiar silence to wrap around me like a cloak. The walls seemed to be closing in, and the shadows whispered my insecurities back to me. I sat on my bed, glancing at the piles of books stacked haphazardly on my desk, dreams trapped within their pages. I had won a few small art competitions, I applied for scholarships. I even had a little portfolio, but nothing felt enough or worthy of a mention. The rage bubbled beneath my skin, an awkward dance of insecurity and envy. Why don't they value me? Why do I even try? I asked myself, the rest of the world falling silent around me. My fingers trembled as my thoughts swirled like a storm cloud, dark and heavy. I could feel the bitterness transforming. It was no longer just a feeling, but a fierce flame igniting within me. I was tired of being a shadow, tired of cringing in the background while my brother basked in the limelight of approval. They thought they could just decide my worth. They thought I would quietly accept their dismissals. but deep down, I felt the clarity of a vengeful whisper beckoning me. A half-formed plan began to weave its way through my mind like a spider spinning a web of intricacy. What if I could show them what I was capable of? What if I could take control of my narrative? It felt like a flicker of power igniting in the darkness, a shift in the balance. My heart raced with a sense of newfound purpose, an intense resolve coating over my bitterness. I did not want to be the neglected sibling anymore. I wanted to make them see me, to make them realize exactly what they had overlooked, and I was willing to go to great lengths to achieve it. Suddenly, I jumped to my feet, energized by the rush of rebellion flowing through my veins. I strode across the room, filled with conviction. I started writing, pulling together images and feelings that had trapped me for so long into a furious storm of ink on paper. Each word poured out of me, stitching my story together with the desires I had hidden for too long. With every stroke of the pen, I was carving out my own identity, reclaiming my worth piece by painstaking piece. As the night wore on, I felt a sense of release. The ache of neglect morphed into determination. I would not allow the world to toss me aside any longer. My brother's achievements would not overshadow my dreams, no more. The thought of my parents' oblivious pride ignited a dreadfully vibrant desire for revenge inside me. I could picture their faces when I presented my art, my thoughts, my dreams, not as a fleeting shadow, but as a force to be reckoned with. The first step of my revenge was clear. I would not play the part of the invisible sister any longer. I would step into the light and show them exactly who I was, and that fight for recognition would begin with a stone laid upon their grand monument to my brother. My heart thumped with excitement as the dawn crept in through my window, the soft light beckoning me forward, away from my darkened past, and toward a future where I would no longer be in the shadows. I was done waiting. It was time to seize the narrative back as months passed. The gap between us widened, like a dark canyon shrouded in fog that swallowed chances of laughter and connection. I could not rid myself of the bitterness growing in my chest, a weight heavier than any school backpack. I stood at the threshold of my brother's room, the door slightly ajar, and watched him as he reveled in the world my parents had built around him. A world that gleamed with expensively wrapped presents and animated birthday parties where laughter echoed through the hallways. He was a beacon, a star whose light could not be dimmed, while I felt like the shadow lurking just behind, always out of focus, always overlooked. "Not today," my mom would say, brushing off my attempts to propose family outings, her voice tinged with that frustrating tone of distraction that I had begun to recognize too well. "We cannot right now. Your brother has soccer practice," she would continue, glancing at her watch as if it were the ultimate authority on family time. My heart would sink a little deeper each time. I had put forth ideas meant to weave together the strands of our distance, only to discover I was still the frayed thread at the very edge left untouched. I would drop my gaze to my feet, shuffling them across the carpet, feeling increasingly small and insignificant as the walls seemed to close in on me. They were so consumed with his achievements that they barely acknowledged my struggles. Each "not today" chipped away at my will, at my desire to connect. The first time I felt truly abandoned was on that dreary afternoon. My friends gathered in a lively group chat, buzzing with excitement as they shared their acceptance letters to prestigious universities. They sent pictures, glowing with pride and dreams waiting to unfold. I wore a forced smile while typing my congratulations, but inside, I felt hollow, like a shell left behind after a stormy tide had receded. I looked at the rejection letter crumpled in my hands, the paper cold against my skin. They had stamped "regretfully declined" in bold, crushing words that echoed in my mind. I tossed the letter onto my desk, its presence a sharp reminder of the options I no longer had. I could hear voices of triumph from outside my window, the sun glowing like hope over grassy fields while I sat inside, cloaked in shadows. "Why even try?" I muttered, my resolve waning, and when a familiar knock on my door startled me, I quickly wiped my eyes dry. "Hey, do you want to come and play some video games with us?" My brother called through the door with that easygoing charm of his. There was an unbothered cadence in his voice, like he had no idea about the festering wounds I was nursing. My heart ached, reminding me that I should want to join him, that family was supposed to be about shared moments. But the thought made me want to scream. "I'm busy," I replied, my voice coming out sharper than I intended. "Go ahead without me." For a brief moment, I could hear the rustling of him shuffling away, and even though I should have felt relief, it only filled me with more anger. I fumed as I sat back against my bed, pulling my knees up to my chest. It wasn't just the rejections from the school, it felt like I was getting rejected from the family as well. The next day changed everything. With a heavy heart, I descended the stairs and found my parents, voices rising from the living room. "Did you hear? He got in." My mom's voice was bubbling over with excitement, and my father's proud laughter ricocheted off the walls, filling the house with a sense of joy that was foreign to me now. I paused at the foot of the stairs, my hands gripping the banister tightly as a wave of nausea washed over me. The words hung in the air thick like smoke, and I struggled against the suffocating pressure. "That's amazing," my father exclaimed. "I knew you could do it. All of that hard work paid off, son." As I peered in, I saw my brother bouncing on his feet, beaming from ear to ear, a trophy held firmly in his grasp for all to see. It was a moment I wanted to share, to be part of too, but it was as if an invisible wall had been erected between us, separating my desire to congratulate him from the reality of my feelings. Mesmerized, I felt myself shift between envy and heartbreak, realizing that once again, I was slipping further into the shadows. "Which dorm are you thinking about?" Mom asked, her voice brimming with interest, a tone of adoration I had scarcely heard directed towards me. "Probably the one with the best study facilities," he said, beaming with pride. "I want to make sure I can focus." I wanted to stab him with my pain, remind him how distant this news felt for me. "Of course, we should start planning a visit there. How about a family trip to check it out?" Dad suggested enthusiastically. "Can I come along?" I called out from my place on the staircase, wanting desperately to be included. Sure," my brother faltered for a moment, surprised. But the moment passed quickly like a fleeting shadow, and before he could feel guilty, he turned back to my parents. "I think we should go in July, right before they start their orientation." "That will be perfect," Dad agreed. "We might even get to meet some of your new friends." I felt my heart drop again as the excitement deepened at the thought of my brother leaving, and we stood there trapped in countless moments lost in time, seeing how easily he would slip away. What about my dreams? That night, while the echoes of their discussion floated across the house, I stared at the photograph of all of us together that I had taped on my wall. In it, we were in a park, the sunshine bathing our faces, all grinning like we had found the key to happiness. I used to think those smiles were enough, that they meant something, but they felt like relics now, reminders of a time when I was not hovering at the edges. "You think you can achieve that level of success too, huh?" I whispered to the image of my brother, allowing the bitterness to seep into the words. Without an answer from the frozen moment captured in that photograph, I realized he was the one whom everyone would celebrate, while I would remain the invisible child, hiding in the shadows crafted by their love. The next morning was a Sunday, and the house was quiet, with the sun just beginning to crawl across the floorboards. Once again, I was alone. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my friends' posts filled with college acceptance celebrations, vibrant sounds, and images. It sent me spiraling down what felt like an emotional black hole. I put my phone down, knowing it wouldn't help. That was when I caught a glimpse of my brother walking in, his eyes lit up with a vibrant energy that felt so alien to me. "Hey, want to play some games?" he asked, his enthusiasm bursting through the melancholy air. His friendly tone felt like a taunt, and I wanted to lash out, but instead of erupting, I swallowed hard. "Sure, why not?" I managed to say, gritting my teeth against the bitterness that fluttered in my chest. As we sat in front of the gaming console, I couldn't focus on the screen. His laughter echoed around me like a punishment, each joyous sound driving the dagger deeper into my already wounded heart. I wanted to scream, to shake him until he could see me, really see me, but what would that accomplish? Would he even care? "Are you even paying attention?" he asked, a playful smirk stretching across his face. "Why should I?" "You're the star," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Come on, it's all fun and games," he tried to laugh, shrugging it off. "Right, unless you are outshining everyone and stealing the spotlight. Good luck with that," I muttered almost under my breath, but it was too late. The words spilled out harsh, cutting through the air like a knife. He paused, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. "What are you talking about? This is about fun." "Fun for you, maybe," I challenged, standing to shut off the console in one swift motion, feeling the rage bubbling up even more. "Your success is all they talk about. What about me? When am I going to be recognized for my own achievements? The truth is you're the golden child, and I'm just here in the shadow." His face fell, the smile replaced with an uncomfortable silence. He looked at me. "That is not true. Mom and Dad love you, they care." "If by love you mean ignore, then yes, absolutely." I snapped back, feeling powerful momentarily but almost instantly regretful when I saw his expression darken, like clouds blotting out the sun. You think I wanted this? He shot back, a tremor in his voice. I didn't choose to get a free pass on everything. I worked hard too, but why would you assume it's all about me? Because it always is. I yelled, the tears threatening to spill over. You don't see it. You're the one in the spotlight, while I'm just an afterthought. Harper, you cannot possibly think that, he said softly, almost pleading, his blue eyes searching mine for any sign of reason. Your family. Am I, really? I questioned, my voice breaking. You would never understand the struggle of being second best. You are everything that I cannot be. He opened his mouth, but words seemed to fail him, leaving us suspended in that moment of unspoken tension. I turned to retreat from the confrontation, a wave of anguish flooding through me as the disappointment hung heavily in the air. Maybe I don't want to be family anymore, I whispered, almost inaudibly, but it hung between us, raw and real, as I left him standing there. The words ricocheting through my mind. I still remember the smell of the roasted chicken wafting through the air as I sat at the dinner table, almost like a familiar melody that would play at every family gathering. The music of clinking silverware and muffled laughter surrounded me, brightening the otherwise dimly lit dining room. But this time, I felt heavy. My heart thudded against my ribcage, a rhythmic reminder of the weight on my shoulders, the endless pressure I felt to measure up. My brother's voice rang out, clear and proud, as he regaled our family with tales of his recent accomplishments, the sports trophies, the scholarships, the endless praise from our parents. And just last week, I was awarded the Student of the Year, he exclaimed, his chest puffed out like a peacock displaying its colorful feathers. Everyone laughed and clapped, their eyes shining with adoration. I sat there, a shadow swimming in their light. I could hardly remember the last time someone had asked about me, much less applauded an achievement of mine. The only sounds I made were a few obligatory, a huzz, half-hearted nods, while my mind raced with a mix of anger and envy. As my brother continued to bask in the glory, details from his latest adventure slipped past me like water through cupped hands. I wanted to scream, to topple his throne of accolades. Why did he get all the applause? Watching him smile, so self-assured and smug, struck a nerve deep within me. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of my aunts, bless her heart, turned to me with a sweet, oblivious smile and asked, "So, Harper, what are your college plans?" A hush fell over the table. My heart plummeted into my stomach like an anchor sinking into the sea. I noticed my parents exchanging looks, the kind where words remained unspoken, but the discomfort in their expressions felt like a dagger piercing through my skin. Their eyes shone with a mixture of pity and embarrassment, and I could almost hear the thoughts swirling around in their heads, thinking, how will we explain this? Before I could process my feelings, my brother, an effortless embodiment of confidence, leaned back in his chair and let out a laugh that echoed through the silence. "Oh, I think she is still figuring it out," he chuckled, tossing my struggles aside as if they were nothing more than a mere punchline. A sharp gasp tore itself from my throat, the words stung far worse than any slap. I felt exposed, nakedly vulnerable in that moment. Flame-red embarrassment crept up my neck, scorching my cheeks. Suddenly, all those rehearsed speeches I had been planning vanished, fading into nothingness. My breath quickened, and the laughter felt like jagged glass. "Thanks, real supportive, you know?" I spat out, feeling flames of indignation ignite beneath my skin. My fingertips curled tightly around the edge of the table, my knuckles turning white. I felt everyone's eyes on me, the moment stretching into infinity. I was a statue of rage, a volcano waiting to erupt. My voice appeared from nowhere. It was weak and shaky, an echo of someone I didn't recognize. I stood up, feeling the weight of expectations crashing down on me, the need to escape surfacing in an instant. "Excuse me, I need to go." I fled the room, my chair scraping against the floor as I stood, the sound loud in my ears. As I stormed away, I could hear the murmurs behind me, voices blending into a muffled buzz. "Oh dear," someone said softly, another saying, "maybe she just needs some time." I could hardly care. The sting of their whispers was drowned by the rush of adrenaline that surged through me. I made my way down the hallway, the air thick and suffocating, my heart racing as anger coursed through my veins like fire. Outside in the cool evening air, I took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp scent of early spring. The fragrance of blooming flowers mingled with the remnants of dinner lingering in the back of my throat, the aroma quickly fading into nothing as my thoughts spiraled. I could hear the distant sound of laughter and glasses clinking together inside. It felt like a barrier that separated me from a place I was supposed to belong. I pictured myself standing amongst them, an invisible wall rolling up around me, taunting me at every turn. It was always this way. It wasn't that I didn't want to go to college, I desperately did. But every time I tried to make plans or share my goals, they would evaporate like smoke. They would drown in the endless praise he received, like waves washing over a tiny sandcastle. How could I compete with a hurricane? I had become nothing more than a backdrop in the grand tapestry of my family's achievements. I was tired of being the family joke. Standing under the vast expanse of the starlit sky, I found a sense of clarity. Something shifted inside me. It was as if I had cracked open a locked door and walked into a room suffused with fiery determination. That was my moment of truth. I realized that I needed to take control of my fate, but how could I do that? The thought of revenge ignited a spark. What if I could turn their love for my brother against them, exposing their favoritism, showcasing their denial so blatantly that they could no longer ignore it? I could feel a grin creeping upon my lips, not a cheerful one, but one that spoke of a brewing storm. Perhaps the best revenge would be to show them how blind they truly were. Every glance they shared, every supportive word they offered him, while dismissing me, could be turned into their greatest embarrassment. The seeds of an elaborate plan started to sprout in my mind, visions of me standing tall as I unveiled the truth to our entire family. In my fantasy, I could already hear my aunt's voice piping up once more. "What are your plans, Harper?" But this time, instead of stammering and feeling like a fool, I would respond with certainty, a clear map laid out showing my objectives, my goals, and my worth. I would gather evidence, pinpoint each moment when their favoritism showed itself. I envisioned creating an interactive family album filled with chronicles that showcased each triumph of mine overshadowed by my brother's achievements, growing up often in his shadow, but not anymore. I would lay out the truth in front of them like a shimmering puzzle. I peered into the darkened windows of the house. Shadows danced inside, laughter echoed as they relished the satisfaction of a pleasing dinner, but I felt powerful outside, like a storm gathering energy. The silence was thick, yet my heart raced with anticipation. After years of feeling hidden, I was ready to step into the light and take them down on my terms. Each path they twisted before me only made me more resolute. Seizing my phone, I began to jot down my steps. I would craft an undeniable narrative, a story that would magnify my once muted voice so loudly they could never overlook it. The plan began to take form, like the intricate layers of an onion, each one sharp and revealing a different angle of my truth. I would gather testimonials from teachers, friends, even acquaintances who always hushed me in favor of my brother, and explore every possible moment of my achievements that had gone unnoticed. It was time to showcase who I truly was, herald of the forgotten, and to remind them, my family, that the laughter no longer belonged only to my brother. I would have the last laugh. Filled with adrenaline, I knew I had crossed the line. I would no longer be the girl sitting at the table, ignored and belittled, waiting for my turn. No more would I excuse myself from the jokes at my expense. I thought about how every meal at the dinner table had become a reflection of my brother's facade, perfect and admired. The tides were turning, and I would rise from this turmoil, a fierce wave of change crashing down. As I strolled back inside, the resolve in my heart turned hard and solid. The dining room was alive, laughter spilling out like warmth from a fireplace, but I felt like the rain ready to shatter their cozy night. I would take back my power. This was just the beginning. I was done being the family joke. I was Harper Smith, and I would write my story, and my revenge I decided to be the one who exposed the financial secrets that my parents desperately wanted to hide. Using my brother's phone, which I had borrowed under the pretense of needing help with a school project, I sent an anonymous message to our family group chat. The message was clear. It disclosed exactly how my brother's $50,000 college fund was hidden while I was left to fend for myself. I could hardly contain my excitement. As I sat back on the couch, feeling the weight of the moment rest on my shoulders, the adrenaline coursed through me like a wildfire, igniting the quiet darkness that had settled in. In the silence of our living room, dark wood furniture neatly arranged, the remnants of a half-eaten pizza still lingering on the coffee table, the soft hum of the ceiling fan above, this was my moment. I could hear the faint thud of my heart like a drum reverberating in my ears as I waited for the first responses to pour in. For once, I felt powerful. For once, I felt in control. The white light of the screen grew brighter as I watched the dots appear on the chat, signaling that someone was typing. "Wait, what?" My mother's response felt electric, her disbelief spilling out on the screen in quick succession. Who sent this? This can't be true. I glanced at her, the slight trembling of her hands wrapped around her phone giving away the facade of calmness she was attempting to project. Her face, usually so composed, twisted into a mask of confusion and anger, exposing the cracks in her carefully constructed universe. I knew it, my uncle jumped in. His voice had always been dramatic, a perfect fit for the family gatherings where he would hold court, sharing tales of his business conquests. This explains so much. How could you do this to your sister? I felt a swirl of emotions, pride, vindication, and a strange kinship with my brother. It was thrilling to watch, from behind the comforting curtain of anonymity, as they began to turn on one another. I quickly leaned forward as the conversation heated up. Mom, you can't just ignore the truth. You've always favored him. He gets the college fund, while I get to scrape by on student loans and whatever I can pull together myself. It is unfair. It is the truth. I could hardly keep the anger from cascading my voice as I could feel other relatives starting to wade in. Is this a joke? My father questioned, his tone a mixture of disbelief and irritation. He shifted his body, pushing back against the dining chair like it could physically shield him from the truth. Harper, surely you must understand the decisions we had to make for your brother's future. He sounded desperate, the words barely escaping his lips as if they were being wrenched out of him. For his future? I spat back, the words bitter on my tongue. What about mine? Am I not worth investing in? Did you forget I exist when you plotted this out? The tension in the room was palpable, thick like fog, and almost suffocating haze. I felt my palms start to sweat as reality shifted, a reckoning was unfolding. My heart raced so fast I thought I might burst. Yet there was also a fierce joy brewing inside me, a giddy sensation that made it hard to sit still. I just can't believe you would do this. My mother's voice came out in strangled gasps. You really believed after everything we've done for you, this was the way to go? There were tears welling in her eyes, and I suddenly questioned whether they were tears of anguish or anger. And then, the silence fell for a moment, almost like a sacred pause, as every relative seemed to take a collective breath. Then the floodgates opened. What did you expect? An aunt typed furiously, her message punctuated with a flurry of emojis that were completely out of context. You've got to own up to your choice, Harper. This was low, so low. Family secrets are family secrets, said another relative, a cousin I barely knew, typing away from another part of the country. There are better ways to address these things. My heart dropped, guilt pierced through the excitement, and it was an ugly feeling. But it was too late to take it back. The thrill of exposing the truth was pushing me deeper into the octagon. I didn't mean to hurt you, I typed, then immediately regretted it. Was that what I wanted, to hurt them? Or was it to be seen, to be validated in a world where their definition of success was a dollar amount? I deleted the message, longing to hurl further into this tempest swirling around me. I want what is mine. It is not yours to take. My father snapped, and I could see the rage igniting his features as he leaned forward, his fingers now gripping the table tightly. What a display, I thought, watching them unravel. I had begun to contemplate the invisible strength that was powering me, the realization that my resolve had begun to harden. It was time for the gloves to come off. Do you really believe your actions are justified? My mother pressed again, the betrayal laden in her voice heavy like a cloud. Harper, we raised you better than this. Did you? Did you really, though? The words slipped out before I could catch them, alien voices spilling from my lips. How could you say you raised me better when you raised me with separation, with favoritism plastered over everything? You said family came first, yet your actions rang hollow. You are tearing this family apart, she retorted, voice quaking, a storm of emotions starting to spin out of control. You're doing that yourselves, I shot back. I felt alive, liberated somehow amid the chaos spiraling outwards like a chain reaction. It is your secrets, after all. The digital ping of notifications filled the gaps of silence created by their gasping disbelief. The hopelessness and anger swirling around the room mirrored my own tumultuous feelings. The exchange was palpable, almost tangible in the air as if it crackled with static electricity. Someone is going to regret this, my father muttered, his eyes narrowing in my direction. In that moment, fear didn't feel like an option. Regret? What will you regret? Continuing this charade while I stood by. In a day and age where the truth is everything, a family member replied, "This can't be the way, Harper. You need to take this down." No, I declared firmly, the surge of defiance angry in my veins. What I need is recognition, acknowledgement, and most of all, the chance to really be seen. My mother, drowning in her sorrow, turned to my brother, tears running freely. What do you think? You know the truth. How could she do this? He sat there, phone in hand, eyes darting between our parents and the chat, his face mirrored shock and confusion. Something deep down, perhaps the mischievous side we share, awakened in me and whispered, "What does he feel about all of this?" "Honestly, it's crazy," he finally replied quietly after the overwhelming onslaught of emotions boiled down into a single thought. "I mean, the fund is there. I didn't really think it was such a big deal. We just always knew it was set aside for me." "Still doesn't make it right, Harper." Amid the rising tide of voices, I felt something crack open inside me at his words, a window into his thoughts pried open wider. It was one thing to air skeletons, it was another to catch a glimpse of souls. "I suppose," I replied slowly, "for me, it became too big to ignore. I wanted you to understand it wasn't about just the money." "It kind of sounds like it, though," he pressed back, relevance in his voice. "Yes, because that's how bad this hurt. I felt abandoned. You can't even imagine. Can you?" I exclaimed, leaning on the edge of the couch, my fingers gripping the fabric, feeling like it held the weight of my emotions in its frayed seams. It felt like too much was unraveling beneath me, as if there might not be any coming back from this conflict. Then suddenly, my mother's phone dinged with yet another response. "You both need to calm down," someone implored. "We can talk about this. This isn't the answer." But I was past the point of calm. The dam was down, the flood pouring out, and I was riding the wave. How could they think I could just walk away? Too many years pent up, years of unspoken arguments, of invisible weight built like bricks behind my ribs. Each word, each notification that flashed on the screen felt like a round of applause for my decision, for daring to be seen, to step into the light even as shadows danced around me. "I will not back down anymore," I declared, my voice ringing like a bell in the tension, and in that moment I found myself nodding as if it were a pact with myself. "You've brought this upon yourself, and now we unravel together." The silence was deafening, the aftermath resounding. In that moment, as the conversation dwindled and my parents' disbelief hung in the air like fog, I felt a sense of empowerment unfurling within me. No longer was I the overlooked child. I had chosen to stand tall, to be my own champion amidst the chaos. I was the hornet in the nest now, my message sent, and it had stung deep. The air in the house felt different, heavier with a strange mix of tension and muted anticipation. The sunlight slipped through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the long dining room table that had seen countless family dinners, some filled with laughter and some overshadowed by my brother's triumphant announcements. Today, however, there was silence, like the calm before a storm. My parents, usually so confident in their narratives, sat on opposite ends of the table, exchanging uncertain glances, trying to navigate the aftermath of the family's awareness regarding their favoritism. I watched them from my seat, my heart racing as I felt the weight of what had happened lingering in the air like the scent of fresh coffee brewing. Just last week, everything had exploded in a way I never quite planned. With the family gathered for dinner, I had finally revealed how my brother's achievements were always held at a much higher pedestal than my own. I had laid my heart bare, detailing the years of feeling overlooked. And the shock on my parents' faces had been worth every sleepless night leading up to that moment. The truth had burst forth like the shattered glass of a broken window, leaving them scrambling to put the pieces back together. "Harper," my father said slowly, attempting to regain the control he had lost, "we need to talk about this." His voice wavered slightly, not with authority, but with the realization that he no longer held the upper hand. I could see the deep lines of worry etched across his brow, the way his fingers drummed nervously against the polished wood of the table, as if he were contemplating his next move in a game he was prepared to lose. "Talk about what, exactly?" "About how you both have made it abundantly clear that I was the second option, the leftover, the afterthought." I couldn't help myself. The words came out sharper than I intended, but they resonated with a truth I was finally ready to embrace. I felt oddly empowered, like I had finally taken off a cloak of invisibility that had shrouded me for so long. My mother glanced at my father and then turned to me, her expression softening for just a moment. "Harper, we never meant to prioritize your brother over you. We thought." "Thought what?" I interrupted, needing them to hear the pain behind those words. That ignoring me while lavishing him with every encouragement and opportunity was the right way to raise two kids. You can't take back the years. Just because my brother received a new car for his birthday and I got a hand-me-down from your friend doesn't mean things are okay now. I could see regret flickering in my parents' eyes. They had tried to control the narrative, to sweep their negligence under the rug of excuses, but the truth stood tall in the room like a towering monument. "I have heard you both speak about investment," I continued, my voice steadier now. Yet, it always seemed like the only investment was in my brother's future. I was left with nothing but shadows. Just this morning, I spoke with your brother, my father began hesitantly, as if he were testing the waters of a treacherous river. We decided, after some discussion with relatives, that we want to ensure you both have equal opportunities when it comes to your education. Equal opportunities? I felt a swell of bitterness rise within me. How could their feeble attempts to remedy years of negligence be measured in words alone? You mean you can suddenly right the wrongs by matching whatever my brother received only because family backlash made it too hard to ignore? For a moment, silence hung in the air so thick I could almost feel it pressing against my chest. I studied my parents, searching their expressions for genuine remorse or just the panic of being confronted. "Please, Harper," my mother murmured, "what we did was wrong. We see that now." "Do you?" The word slipped out before I could stop it, a challenge wrapped in disbelief. "You really see it? Because it's taken me years to realize I'm not the lesser sibling, that I deserve consideration just like he does. Equal opportunities, as you call them, after the fact, do not make up for being sidelined and forgot." My heart raced as those words hung between us like an echo, strangling the apparent lack of answers. This is not just about the college fund. It's also about the emotional investments you never gave. You can't pretend to fix it by throwing money at me now. Hurt flickered in my father's expression, and yet somehow it began to shift. "You're right," he admitted, visibly taking a breath as if to embrace his own vulnerability. "I'm sorry. I've prioritized your brother and it wasn't fair. I thought I was building a foundation for his success while neglecting the incredible person you are. Now you see me." My voice faltered just a bit, the emotional weight of the moment striking deeper than I expected. But what good is seeing someone if you've taken away their chance to grow in the way they deserve? I shifted in my chair, glancing down at the table, tracing the grain of the wood with my finger, feeling a knot of resentment twisting in my stomach. For the first time, I didn't feel like the neglected sibling. Instead, I felt empowered, emboldened. It was a strange mix of sadness and hope that wrapped around my heart. I broke the silence that followed, lifting my chin defiantly. "I will accept your offer, but know this, it won't erase the years of hurt. I won't forget how you prioritized his achievements over mine, but I will use this moment to find my own success. Not for you or for him, but for me." And then there was my brother, sitting quietly across the table. I had expected to see gloating or resentment, perhaps even a challenge burning brightly in his eyes. Instead, I found him observing me with something that caught me off guard, a glimmer of respect. "Harper, I never knew you felt that way," he finally said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. He glanced at me, revealing a vulnerability I had never witnessed before. "I thought you didn't care about competing. It was always me against the world, not realizing you were in your own fight. Competing? It was never a competition to me. I just wanted to feel heard and valued too. I didn't need competition to feel like a member of the family." "I am sorry," he said softly. I could see shame fill his eyes, the walls he meticulously built crumbling piece by piece. "I didn't realize how things had affected you. What if we started fresh? I mean, not just restoring our relationship, but as equals." The sincerity in his tone was striking, a tonal shift that surprised even me. I nodded, hesitant but willing to explore the unfamiliar territory of our new connection. "Maybe that is worth considering." The heaviness in the room lifted slightly, replaced with a distant promise of healing, of rebuilding bridges once thought to be burned irreparably. This was no fairy tale ending, but it was better than nothing. Perhaps this was what I needed to reclaim my place, not only in our family, but within myself as well. I needed to recognize my worth, not just as the neglected sibling, but as an equal member of our complex family. Sometimes the greater challenge was what brewed inside me, the years of feeling invisible slowly melting away. "Sometimes it takes a storm to create a new dawn," I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else. And as I looked around the table, I realized the storm might be done brewing, leaving behind an unexpected calm and room for growth. Without avoiding eye contact, we all sat there, trying to mend our broken connections, each aware that the path to healing would take time and effort. The journey toward reconciliation would not be immediate, and I knew it would come with its challenges, but I also knew I was finally seen, no longer invisible and misunderstood. Sometimes, the greatest weapon I possessed was the courage to stand up for myself and claim my narrative. With newfound respect in my brother's eyes, a tentative peace between my parents and me, I felt that I was no longer hidden in the shadows, and this new dawn promised the chance to flourish in the light.